Chapter 9. We sat at my kitchen table and sipped cups of tea. I would have offered her something else, but tea and water were all we had in the house. I'd locked Candy in the bathroom and she had finally settled down. She only yipped once in a while. It had taken her much longer to settle down and stop barking and growling than it had for me to stop crying. But I hadn't stopped feeling bad and very embarrassed. I'd known this girl for only 2 days, and I'd started crying in front of her. The only thing that made it better, or worse, in any way, was that Harmony had started crying too. That had shocked me. I glanced at my watch. 5:30. Still safe. My father wouldn't be home for at least another half hour. Depending on traffic, maybe even an hour. Of course, sometimes it wasn't the traffic, and he didn't get home until 9 or 10 at night. Those were the times I wondered if he was going to come home at all. None of that mattered now. I just needed to get Harmony out of here before he arrived. But I needed to say something first. I want to apologize to you. For what? She asked. For getting so upset earlier. I cried too, she said. How about if we just pretend it never happened? Sounds good. Thanks. That's what friends do. She paused. You might not know this, but I don't have many friends. I almost said, big surprise, but I stopped myself. It's probably hard to make friends when you keep moving around. It's not that. It's just that, well, I don't have much in common with kids my age. I get it. When I'm talking to you, it's like I'm talking to somebody older, I said. I feel the same way. But usually when people say things like that, it feels almost like an accusation. Why don't you act your age? Who are you trying to fool? I laughed again. Again, I knew exactly what she meant. Sometimes I don't just feel old, but old and tired, she said. I get tired. Do you ever get so tired that you just want to go to sleep? Sometimes I get so tired that I can't sleep, I answered. I understand that. Too many thoughts, too much to be worried about. Do you ever want to just go away? Never come back? Disappear? Disappear? Do you mean like die? It would be easier. She paused and I held my breath. Not that I'd ever hurt myself or anything. I exhaled. Thank goodness. Maybe we feel tired because we have to think about things other kids don't have to think about, I said. That's probably it. Some people have to be older because of what life gives them. You have to be older just like I do. And so you know, like I said before, I won't tell anybody that you're poor, she said. What? I won't tell anybody that you're poor. I'm not poor. Harmony gestured around the room. My father just doesn't like to spend money on things. He didn't like to spend money on anything. The last new thing to come into the house had been a dishcloth 2 months ago. The old one had been in ribbons. I guess that explains why you don't have a cell phone. You don't have one either, I said. I had a phone. My mom hawked it. Really? She sold her phone too. That's why I can't get a hold of her now. She just took your phone and sold it? That's awful. Well, that's not the worst. Sometimes I'd come home from school and the kettle was gone, or the toaster, or the living room furniture, or even some of my toys. She'd sell your toys? All the time. When I was little, I didn't even notice. I just thought I'd lost them. The first time I really noticed was when she sold my favorite toy, a stuffed polar bear. That's terrible, I said. I always snuggled with it when I went to bed, and one night I couldn't find it. I looked under the bed and under the covers and said I wouldn't go to sleep until we found it. My mother made lots of excuses and then finally admitted what she'd done. I couldn't imagine how Harmony must have felt. No, wait, I could imagine it. She told me she'd go and buy it back the next day. That's the only reason I was finally able to get to sleep that night, she said. And did she get it back? She shook her head. Of course not, but even that wasn't the worst. I waited, wondering, wanting to hear, but also not wanting to hear. One Christmas, I woke up and there were like a dozen wrapped presents under the tree. How's that bad? I got to open the presents. There was great stuff and I got to play with it all day. Still wondering how that was bad, I said. I got to play with it that day. The next day, she returned it all to the stores. They weren't really my presents. Harmony laughed, but it wasn't a real laugh. It was a sort of laugh so you don't cry laugh. She'd sell whatever she could to get money for alcohol and drugs. Is that your father's problem too? No. He doesn't drink except for when he goes out on a Saturday night. I don't think I've ever seen him drunk. Well, that makes it even more confusing. What's so confusing? He has a job, and he doesn't do drugs or drink, and you say he has money, but there's no food in the house. We have food. I'm not talking about just potatoes and bread and jam for your sandwiches. We have different food, and we have lots of food. Look, I know I shouldn't have, but when you were checking on the dog, I looked in the fridge. It's almost empty, and I bet there's not much in the cupboards either. She was right. There wasn't much in the cupboards or fridge, but we had food. We have lots and lots of food. You don't have to lie to me. I'm not lying. I got to my feet. Come with me. I went to the basement door, opened it, and clicked on the light. Be careful, the stairs are steep. I started down and Harmony followed. As we went, I realized I was not just telling her things I didn't tell people, but was now going to show her something I didn't show to anybody. Is this the scene where the beautiful, innocent young girl goes into the dark basement and then gets murdered? She asked. I looked back at her. First of all, I think you've already proven that you can take me. And second, innocent? I noticed you didn't argue the beautiful part. I didn't know how to answer that. I hit a second light switch and the far side of the basement became visible. Harmony gasped. Wow. There, against the back wall, were the shelves. They were almost floor to ceiling, and they were filled with cans and packages of food. I told you we had lots of food. You didn't tell me you had a grocery store in your basement. We just like to be prepared, I said. Prepared for what? A zombie apocalypse? The shelves were lined with tinned meat and cans of peas, corn, carrots, mixed vegetables, peaches, and pears. There were glass jars of spaghetti sauce and lots of packages of pasta to go with them. There were dozens of boxes of cereal, packages of crackers, and jars of jam and peanut butter, and just to the side of the shelves sat a gigantic bag of potatoes. There's enough food down here to feed an army. Or 2 people for 6 months, I said. Or 1 person for a year. But why? It's good to be prepared in case we can't shop. You could miss shopping for a few months and be okay. So is this what you do with the money you earn at your job? Nope. My father just stocks up whenever there's a sale. Well, I guess there were lots of sales, said Harmony. She grabbed a mega giant jar of jam. Enough jam to make sandwiches for the rest of the year. Long live the king! I picked up a clipboard. This is where my father keeps track of all the food we have. It has to be rotated out regularly so it doesn't go bad. Canned stuff goes bad? Everything spoils eventually. She looked at me. Are you getting philosophical on me? No, I mean really food. Canned stuff can last for years. Packaged spaghetti and noodles too if they're kept dry. Bread and cereal get stale even if they're sealed. Potatoes start to rot or root. If it goes bad, then we wasted money. And your father doesn't like to waste money, she said. Only people with lots of money can waste it. Harmony's gaze went back and forth along the shelves. What I now don't understand is, if you have this much food, how come you're so skinny? It's here for a reason, I explained. And eating it isn't the reason? Eating it takes away the reason. I'm thinking the reason is that you and your father are paranoid. I was going to argue, but she was right. My father and I were paranoid, but in different ways. His paranoia had allowed me to convince him we needed this food supply, and we did. At least, I did. I had almost run out of food the time he took off for a week. Now he could be gone for 6 months and I'd be okay. He could die and I'd be okay for 6 months. Now that I had the banking password, I could always buy more food. The money I got from my job would help too. Do you ever just take a can of something and eat it and not tell him? Harmony asked as she picked up a can of meat. Sometimes. I hesitated. Could I trust her to keep a secret? I changed the numbers on the sheets so he doesn't know anything's gone. And he doesn't notice? I shook my head. There were times he didn't even notice me, let alone changed numbers on some sheet of paper. It wasn't that hard to take a can of meat. Well, that means you could do it all the time, she said. I only do it when I need to. Candy started barking again. Somebody was at the door or walking by the house. Or my father was home. I'd lost track of time. I had to hope it was a stranger. Come on, we have to go upstairs right now. I rushed across the basement, flipping the light off before Harmony had made it completely onto the glow of the stairway light. We raced upstairs and I flicked off the light and closed the basement door just as the front door opened. I'm home, my father yelled. I turned to Harmony. It's my father. Please don't mention that I took you down to the basement. She looked confused, but she nodded. I went over to the stove, put the pot of potatoes on a burner, and turned it on. Candy started yipping and yelping. She was happy to hear my father's voice. He always treated Candy well. I quickly let her out of the bathroom. Hello, he called from down the hall. I tried to judge his voice. He sounded happy, but not too happy. Maybe the elevator was halfway down or halfway up, and this wouldn't be too bad. Don't take anything he says personal, okay? I said to Harmony. She nodded solemnly. That highway is usually so crowded and such a death trap, but somehow today the traffic wasn't nearly as... My father stopped talking as he walked into the kitchen and saw Harmony. Dad, this is my friend Harmony. Hello, she said. He looked at her intently, like he was trying to figure out a puzzle. Harmony? Like a symphony orchestra? Something like that, she said. You know, I once had neighbors who had a dog named Harmony. Strange thing was, that dog couldn't sing a note to save her life. He laughed at his joke, a sure sign that the elevator was heading up. Harmony gave a weak smile. Not that I'm calling you a dog. Harmony's in my class, I interjected. We were here studying. Huh. I don't see any books out. Were you studying biology? You know, sex education? He waggled his eyebrows. Harmony is my friend, I snapped, trying to cut him off before he could say more or she could react to him. I'm just kidding around, he said with a frown. You never seem to be able to take a joke. Oh, he can take a joke, Harmony said. Robert's actually quite funny. Robert? It is my name, I said. Everybody at school had reacted to her calling me that, so why wouldn't he? A part of me wished she'd just call me Robbie. On the other hand, I liked that she didn't. I was Robert. It was my name. The name my parents, my mother, had given me. It certainly is. Perhaps I should call you Mr. Robert instead. Robert will be fine, I said, ignoring his sarcasm. The potatoes are on the stove. Harmony has to go now, and I'm going to walk her home. Are you going to carry her imaginary books, too? I didn't respond. I'm going to walk Candy. I'll be back in 20 minutes. I walked out of the room. I had the urge to grab Harmony and pull her along, but I knew if I did, my father would make some comment about us holding hands. I called for Candy, and she came. She snarled and growled at Harmony. I clicked her leash onto her collar. As soon as I closed the door behind us, Harmony spoke. What is your dad's problem? I don't even know where to start. I really wanted to ask him why he came home so early tonight, she said. You can't ever ask him that. Please, don't. I wouldn't do that to you. Never, she said. You know, you don't have to walk me home. Yeah, I know, but I need to get away from him for a few minutes, and Candy needed a walk. I explained. It'll also give me a chance to settle down, not feel so angry. You don't seem that angry. I am. Look, I'm sorry. You don't need to apologize for him. He really is a jerk, isn't he? Sometimes. Some people really like him. Some people are stupid. My father often had a girlfriend, although they never seemed to stick around for more than a month or two. Maybe they were stupid enough to date him, but smart enough not to stay. At least he didn't hassle you about spending money on your new pants. I laughed. He didn't notice them. How could he not notice? They are spectacular pants. Just what I've always wanted. Spectacular pants. But believe me, I doubt he'd have noticed if I wasn't wearing any pants. Well, let's try to avoid testing that theory when I'm around, Harmony said. We came up to her house, her foster home, and stopped. Are they treating you okay? I asked. Yeah, they seem nice. Surprisingly nice. But it could all be an act. So you're not thinking of running? Not tonight. Besides, there's really no point. I'll wait it out. It won't be that long. My mother will probably get her act together in a couple of weeks, 4 or 5 max. Oh, that's right. Then you'll go home. Well, don't sound so disappointed. It surprised me that I felt that way, and it surprised me even more that she'd heard it in my voice. There's always a 50-50 chance she'll screw things up, so it could be longer, she said. I know you've been in foster homes before, but exactly how many times? I asked. More than I'd like to remember. Hey, I was just wondering, since you have a job and get paid, and you obviously don't spend it on clothing, what do you do with your money? I'd quickly learned that when Harmony didn't want to talk about something, she changed the subject. I guess I recognized it because I did the same thing myself. Well, she asked. I'm saving up for a private jet. Seriously. I mean a yacht. I've always wanted a yacht. It's a car, right? You seem like the sort of guy who's saving for a car years before they're old enough to drive. It's wheels, right? I just smiled and nodded. You don't seem like a gearhead, but guys are guys. Just out of curiosity, do you ever think about running away? Why would I? I asked. Come on. I've run away from places that are better than where you live. It's my home. It's my house. It's my place. Yeah, I guess I understand. There have been times when I should have called social services about my mother, but I didn't. I just stayed, she said. She started up the walk to her house, and I called out to her, "What was its name?" She turned and looked at me, confused by my question. Your polar bear. The one your mom took and sold? What was his name? She smiled. Polar. Polar the bear. Stupid, right? I like it. I would have called it the same thing, I said. Oh, great. Now I'm as hopeless as you. Or as cool. I'll see you tomorrow, I said. Right? You should come by my house and we'll walk to school together. I'll even let you carry my imaginary books, she said with a wink. Now, you better get home and get to work. You haven't worked harder than me today. I knew she was joking, but she was also right. I did have work to do. Then Harmony surprised me by coming back down the walk. What was she doing? When she was close enough, she threw her arms around my shoulders and gave me a big hug. My arms hung limply at my sides. See you tomorrow, she said, and then turned and disappeared into her house. I just stood there, too shocked to move. She'd hugged me. When was the last time anyone had hugged me? I couldn't remember. I'd just been hugged by some girl I hadn't even known existed until 2 days ago. A girl who only the day before had punched me in the nose. A girl who had just gone clothes shopping with me. A girl I'd told secrets that I'd never told anybody. A girl who most likely would be gone in a few days, or at most a few weeks. Maybe that made it all okay.